Hi, this is Shadi, and today I want to discuss self-defense. Now, self-defense in our days, when we say the term, it has become a joke. It has been associated with old katas of Koryu, and also it has been associated with very static cooperative training. But today I want to discuss this because there is this idea that all Jiu-jitsu was just this very static kata and it doesn't do anything, and it was with the introduction of sparring that it has evolved, and this is not true whatsoever historically, and just logically speaking it is just not true. So kata means simply form, and when it comes to form, this is it, just form. It has two main goals in my opinion. The first one is preserve the techniques, because keep in mind the Meiji Restoration, etc. Everything was just on its way out. And two, it teaches you basic fundamentals of how you should do the techniques, but it ends there. It's called form. And before I show you all the books and all the footage of these lost teachings, I'm gonna talk to you about this just for a second. Nagi no kata, we still do it the way Kano was doing it more than 100 years ago. Why? Because one of the purpose of kata is to preserve it. So here you see, for example, Elio is demonstrating technique, and do techniques when you're his age. So let's talk first about Nagi no kata. So Nagi no kata is not just a kata that's being done in order for you to get your black belt, but as you can see here, there is throws of strikes, there is throws of the underhook, as you see here in Harai Goshi, there is throws of the clinch, the overhook, and the underhook with the Sutemi Waza portion of it. Here you see strikes with Uranage again, and also here you see the clinch and does Sumigaeshi. Now, would you think that there was a lot of thought process behind this, and it's just not just grappling matches that we do today? The fact that you have to train to attack from the strike, or throw from the strike, the clinch, sleeve lapel, underhook, and also grabbing the other arm like in Harai Goshi. So it just shows here that they thought of multiple things, multiple scenarios, and not just sleeve lapel like we do today, very basic grappling. So that's one thing that they, I believe, trained in, not just regular randori. Now let's go to Game of Jiu-Jitsu 1906, Taro Miyake and Yukutani. So here Admiral Kamimura says, however expert a man may be in the technical points of a naval education, his service counts little in time of war if he lacks presence of mind. The training in Jiu-Jitsu not only develops a man's physical power and agility, but also tends to make him resourceful in meeting all kinds of emergencies and surprises. So training for unexpected attacks and really training your reflexes was crucial. Here you see the man thrown must spin into this position, meaning don't turn your back, don't turtle. We see it even in MMA with with Megan and Conor McGregor. Arguably the best form of self-defense today is MMA, which I don't necessarily agree, and you still see it turtling not just in Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, wrestling, etc. Let's go to the guard, where he's telling you that this is the best position where you can put the other, breaking the posture. Look at particularly the closed guard, where the posture is completely broken for all sorts of attacks. Isn't that the premise of 10th Planet in general, is to keep that posture completely destroyed and attack it all sorts of ways? Now this is for striking and also just other attacks. If he's taller, he can choke you, etc. Now let's look at this demonstration by Miyake and Tobari, and here you see a very static demonstration in the gi. I've showed this multiple times. This is the 1910s, and you can see very basic Judo Jujutsu, whatever you want to call it, a demonstration, very static and very basic, and it's very cooperative as well, wearing the gi. So you can see that doing stuff very basic like in kata form is not the end all be all, but in a way to learn and also showcase a technique, but it ends there, like I said. Now here, they go into another way of display where they're wearing street clothing, meaning the context has shifted and the attacks are becoming far more dynamic. Yes, this is a demonstration, but he's not gonna kill his friend for your entertainment. But nonetheless, you can see it is far more dynamic. They are training these unexpected attacks from behind, flailing arms, not very rooted, like a patterned Tsuki. Here you see he fell on the ground, he was taken down and continued to defend himself with the Kanibasami. Here you see a Tomoe Nage of someone lunging. Here again, someone like, in order to train this dynamic and your reflexes, it needs to be trained. Not just the technique, but also your reflexes, and in a very dynamic manner. And here you see the attacks are coming non-stop, and he's here, look, he's arresting again. If you read their history, all these figures, Uenishi, etc., they taught self-defense, they taught hand-to-hand combat for the police. You would think that the police, who are literally dealing with criminals, would not just train in kata as we tend to make self-defense today. They trained with the resistance, they trained with unpredicted attacks, and also they trained with dynamic and also static drills. As you see here, this demonstration, it went from very basic to very, dynamic and unpredicted. Also in England, let's go to Gunji Kuizumi, considered the father of British judo, also was very big on self-defense. He would do things from a very static position, and also here this wrist lock from the collar grab. Here you see again doing things a little bit more dynamic, going for Tornage, not so much in kata and very patterned form. This demonstration doesn't show much of unpredicted attacks, but nonetheless you can see it's a bit more dynamic. Now let's go to Brazil, where the first generation Gracies were learning from the Japanese and Donato Pires and Jacinto Ferro. And whenever people talk about Hélio Gracie or Carlos, they would think of rolling and heel hooks and just no takedowns, but that's not the case. This first generation that used to say, if you don't know self-defense, you don't know Jiu-jitsu. They were very big on self-defense. And also, another question, just like those old judokas that were very keen on self-defense, do you think that the Gracie brothers, Hélio and Carlos, went on countless amounts of challenges? The reason why our first impulse is to ridicule traditional martial arts is because of these challenges. Do you think they themselves trained quote-unquote self-defense in a very static, cooperative matter only? I highly doubt it. I had a talk with Pedro Valente very recently on Friday, and I'll release it very soon, where he talked about really training reflexes and unpredicted attacks. It wasn't just atemiwaza, striking, or throws or grappling techniques on the ground, but there was also 5 pillars of self-defense, where I will show it to you in our talk very soon. The stuff that I have been doing for a very long time, showing all techniques and showing that, look, judo had this guard, had this technique, had these leg locks, etc. There's one thing that I haven't seen in all Japanese movies or footage, is the ground and pound defense. You see it in Gracie Combatives, you see it with Hickson, you see it in Hélio Gracie's old book. Now, they were taught by people, again, who were taught judo, and also they were like Donato Pires, who was going around and arresting people as a policeman. Again, he's not gonna train in a very static way. So I do believe that they did self-defense very differently 100 years ago, 70 years ago, etc. Before, the IJF in the 50s and the IBJJF in the 60s, where everything took a route towards only grappling. Here you see Hickson demonstrating, where you in this position, you are responsible for his balance. You can easily put your hips up and not give him, very much ease when he wants to strike you and catching the arm. It's a very long video, I'm not gonna put it all, but nonetheless, Hickson still pretty much loves these things. When he was given his red belt by Horion, he said, let's bring self-defense back to classes. It's a big speech, I'm sure you've seen it. So this is what I'm saying, is that they trained self-defense for the purpose of self-defense, not kata just to get their belt, like you see today in judo. There's no self-defense in BJJ anymore, barely any. So now, when it comes to Pedro Valente and Valente brothers, they created their entire school based on this particular philosophy. It's not that they send competitors and also, once a week they do like drills or static drills, but they do stand-up randori, ground randori, and also they train their reflexes. Training reflex is huge when it comes to self-defense. And also, unpredicted attacks, not just, he's going to strike you with the bat and you know what to do, but also just coming and striking or doing whatever from behind or in front of you. Again, very long talk. The man is an open library, absolutely knowledgeable. It was a great pleasure. And him being Elio Gracie's last black belt, he really knows him and how big he was on self-defense and how to train it. It's not just sparring in the grappling or sports rule, because there's a lot of things you can still do and approach them differently, etc. Now, speaking of self-defense, reflex, unpredicted attacks, this really testifies what Pedro was saying and what I was just saying. Andre Galvao, great champion for decades, MMA, grappling, gi, no gi, and here he's the one that's supposedly done MMA and knows the striking, not Gordon. He's the one that started the confrontation, yet he never saw the slap coming. He would put his arm in front and flinch and goes back. I did that when I was 13, when I got severely bullied, and it struck me it made him look like, and I'm sorry to say this, but made him look like he never trained in his life, or a very organic reflex to this very high tension and high aggressive situation. He did not manage the stress very well of the situation. He acted very instinctively, rather than training your reflexes in a very instinctive way in order to protect yourself and not do these, because anyone who's not trained I would imagine they would react just like him, just like I did. And it really shows that training self-defense, particularly in unpredicted attacks, and training your reflexes, just like the Japanese did, and the Admiral in the book of Game of Jiu-jitsu talked about, really training for surprises and for war. It made me think that, self-defense training is not like just kata and what we talk about. Now, what is being done in Valente Brothers School in Miami, or what Elio Gracie did in his self-defense school. Now, people judge him by this footage. Well, I mean, if you're at his age, if you can get up, put on the gi and do techniques, my hat is off to you. So keep in mind, that's a very old man. But when he talked about self-defense and also going on challenges, you would think that he would train in a way that, works, because he was constantly sparring against other arts, other striking arts, in particular like capoeira, him and Carlos, etc. So also the Japanese, where he talked about surprises, where he talked about assume the position of open guard if thrown, not turtling, keeping someone's posture completely broken in guard, so you would not get your face completely battered. I will leave the link in the description below for the game of Jiu-jitsu. If you want to listen to more of Pedro and Guy Valente, you can go to their channel Valente Brothers TV. Self-defense, it's not just kata, it's resistance training, just like when we do randori, and also in the context of the street. So you keep in mind there's no turtling. You keep in mind don't leave too much space for a punch in the stand-up, so clinching, overhook, underhook, just like in Nagi no Kata, where you see all types of grips in this very basic kata that's being done. Other than that, because we're so immersed in competition, we have so many hours in the week and in the day, you want to train, you want to send out competitors. When it's time for self-defense, it's gonna come out looking very weak, because no one's dedicating the real time. So I don't know what's going on in, say, the police academy in Tokyo. I don't know. I'm sure they're not training like they're training a recreational class in Kodokan. this is my goal eventually, to go to Tokyo, go to Imperial University to do Kosen Judo, to go to the police academy, at least visit, and also go to the Kodokan to see how things are really being done. I do believe their training methodology over 100 years ago was very much different to today, both BJJ and Judo. So if you have anything else to add, let me know down below. Also consider supporting me on Patreon. Your support would mean greatly in order to keep me going. And also do not forget to check out the links in the description below. This was Shadi, and thank you for listening.